Hi, welcome to Mennonite Farmhouse. I'm Leanne, and if you're new to my channel, I do cooking and baking from scratch, canning, and anything else that might go around the kitchen island. And if you're into that sort of thing, feel free to subscribe and hit that all notifications to be notified when I upload my next video. In this video, we are going to make 3 different recipes using rhubarb. I just love rhubarb just because my mom always grew it growing up, and she still has a huge patch of it. It's this time of year where people in the north have lots of rhubarb and don't know what to use for it. So I hope this video inspires you, and let's get it on. First up is a childhood favorite of mine, of rhubarb upside down cake. I have many fond memories of this dessert. We're going to use 3 cups of sliced fresh rhubarb, or you can use frozen. 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1 cup of sugar. This recipe for the cake part is from the Grange cookbook from 1972, and it's my mom's go-to cake recipe called Old Faithful. And you're going to need 2½ cups of all-purpose flour, a tablespoon of baking powder, a 1/2 cup of shortening or lard, 1½ cups of sugar, a cup of milk, 3 eggs, and 1½ teaspoons of vanilla, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. First, you want to preheat your oven to 350. Next, we're going to add our sugar and our fat to the bowl. Then we're going to cream those well. I'm mixing this by hand just because my mom never used a mixer for cakes or anything like that. She only used the mixer for mashed potatoes, and never understood, because that's the one thing you shouldn't use your mixer for because of the gluten. So don't be afraid to use your stand mixer if you have one. I'm just doing this for sake of my childhood. Next, we're going to add our salt and our vanilla. And I'm going to crack my eggs one at a time into a separate container, because Howard doesn't like crunchy eggshells. And the 3 eggs gives it a nice richness. Then we're going to mix this well. Then we're going to add our baking powder to our flour. Then we're going to add a little bit of the flour mixture and mix well. And I'm assuming if you had a stand mixer, you can probably dump it all in at once. But the directions say to add a little bit of the milk and the flour alternately. Now, this is probably the first thing I made on my own, growing up as a teenager, confidently, without any help from my mother. That's how often we made it. She would put black raspberries in the bottom of the cake with this, or rhubarb. And we would call it silage cake because that's what it looked like to us farmers. And silage is basically fermented grass or silage or corn, but the rhubarb made it look like hay that was fermented. My parents had a dairy farm growing up, and we would feed that to the cows. They made a living on less than 40 cows. Now a dairy farm can barely make do with 100 cows. So when this gets well combined, we'll start on our upside down part. Alright, next we're going to well grease our pan. I'm just using lard and a paper towel. Trying to get away from using my aerosol can, since that's not good for us. Alright, then we're going to set this aside. So to our rhubarb, we're going to add our 1 cup of sugar, our flour, and our nutmeg, and toss to combine. You want to coat that rhubarb with the flour and the sugar. Then we're going to add the rhubarb mixture to the bottom of the pan. I'm using a 9 by 13. You want to make sure your batter is even. Then we're going to bake in a preheated 350 degree oven for 50 to 55 minutes. Alright. Alright, it comes out clean. Nice and golden yellow. Now growing up, we would serve it right out of the pan, right as it comes out of the oven. Then we would pour milk right on top. Look how yellow that cake is. And the milk, cold from the refrigerator, will cool it down, and the cake will be very soft and tender.
Very good. Soft.
And sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And tangy, like rhubarb should be.
Yeah. It's not sour.
So there's enough sugar in it.
Mm-hmm. Not enough milk, it's still hot.
I can get you more milk. For this Amish rhubarb sour cream pie with crumb topping, we're going to need 3 cups of chopped rhubarb, 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of sour cream, 1 egg beaten, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, a pinch of salt, along with our 9-inch unbaked pie crust. For the crumb topping, we need a 1/2 cup of quick oats, a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/3 cup of packed brown sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of lemon zest, and 6 tablespoons of butter. So first we're going to add our sugar, cornstarch, then we're going to add our cinnamon and nutmeg and pinch of salt. We're going to use a whisk to whisk that together. Then we're going to add our egg and our sour cream. Then we're going to toss in our rhubarb. Then we're going to mix well to combine. And I'm noticing a lot of the recipes I'm looking at call for nutmeg. So I guess nutmeg complements rhubarb really well. Then we're gonna pour this into our shell. All right, now let's put together the crumb topping. We're gonna preheat our oven to 425. All right, so we're gonna add our oats, our packed brown sugar, our flour, our lemon zest to the bowl. Now this is a traditional Dutch topping pie recipe for the top of this. Then we'll add in our butter. And probably need to use a fork to crumb it in, or a pastry cutter. So notice how the butter is incorporated with the rest of it now. I think we're ready to put it on the pie and get the pie in the oven. Have I mentioned I'm excited to try this? Alright, so you just want to evenly spread this around and make sure your sides are covered up. So we're going to bake this at 425 for 15 minutes. So when the timer goes off, we'll lower the temperature down to 350 and bake it another 40 minutes. I'm going to cut you a piece of pie. Huh? I got that salted caramel with pretzel in the refrigerator freezer. Huh?
Okay, I'm done. You want some? Not enough?
Yeah, it's plenty.
No good.
Thank you. It's a rhubarb sour cream pie.
Let's see. Never heard of that.
Well, now you're in.
Nice the sour cream part.
Huh?
It's the sour cream part.
So you would have it again?
Mm-hmm.
To make strawberry rhubarb bread, we're going to take 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and we're going to add a half a teaspoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. We're going to whisk that to combine. And then we're going to set this aside. Then into a very large bowl, we're going to crack 2 eggs. And beat them. Then we're going to add our packed brown sugar, which is 1/2 cup, and a 1/4 cup of white sugar, 1/2 cup of oil, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/4 cup of applesauce, and we're going to mix this to combine. And you want to mix this to well smooth. You want to make sure your brown sugar is not in lumps. Then you want to gradually add your dry ingredients. And keep stirring. Now with quick breads, you do not want to over mix them. They'll get tough. And you want to preheat your oven to 350. And that's why I'm using my hand and a whisk instead of using a stand mixer. Then we're going to add in 1 cup of chopped strawberries and 1 cup of fresh rhubarb, and we're just going to fold this in. I'm going to get a loaf pan and we're going to well grease this. I'm just going to use lard and use a paper towel to grease this. You can use parchment paper to get it to easily come out. But if you use parchment paper, I would get it a little wet before you shaped it into the pan. Now this recipe does 1 loaf, but I'm sure you can easily double or triple this recipe for the amount of loaf pans you have and the amount of rhubarb you have and everything else. I'm sure this would freeze well. So you can leave it plain, or you could put decorating sugar on top or a streusel topping. Any of those would be fabulous. And if you leave it plain, you can put a glaze on top after it comes out and cooled. Now we're going to bake this at 350 for about 60 to 65 minutes, or till a toothpick comes out clean. I've made up another batch of the strawberry rhubarb bread mix, and we're going to make muffins with it. Now I've researched this. We're going to try to make bakery style big muffins. So first, you want to line every other muffin tin hole with a paper cupcake liner. Then we're going to spray the liners. Then we're going to fill these extra full. And you want to let your batter sit at least 15 minutes. Mine's been sitting at least a good half hour, maybe 45 minutes since I made this first loaf that's in the oven already. I've never tried this tip before, so we're gonna see how this works out. All right, now when the other loaf comes out, we'll put these in. And I found some sanding sugar that I get at the bulk food store in my cupboard, and I'm just gonna put that on top to give it that bakery style look. All right, timers went off, and I haven't found my cake tester. I don't know how long. Oh my word, I just found it. I've been looking for this thing for I don't know how long. All right. Smells amazing. So we had it in there for 65 minutes, and you want to put your cake tester in, and it comes out clean. So I'm going to let this sit a good 10 minutes. Then we're going to saran wrap it to keep the moisture in. One of my church sisters who owned a bakery at one time has told me this trick. Now that the loaf is out of the oven, we're going to set our temperature to 425 Fahrenheit, and we're going to let that come up to temperature. Then we're going to put these muffins in for 7 minutes. Then drop the temperature down to 350 for the remainder of the time. to see if we get these bakery style muffins. Let's give it a try. All right, we're gonna cancel that and start at 350. And we're gonna try 17 minutes and see if they're done. And as I pull them out of the oven, I am very happy with how they turned out. I'm gonna try this from now on with my muffins.
Real good.
Thank you.
It's in a cupcake wrapper, that makes it a cupcake.